Welcome back to my channel, guys, and greetings from Istanbul, Turkey. Now, I've made a gay travel video before in Istanbul. It's actually my most viewed video ever. I never thought that one of my earliest videos, it was my second year of having this YouTube channel. I was still learning. I cringe at a lot of things with my my older videos, but it's time for an update to this topic. I'm a different person. I'm now in my 30s. I have more life experience. My videos are a bit more polished than they were back then. This was, it was over 5 years ago. I think it was 6 years ago, actually. But also that video wasn't even as comprehensive as it could have been or should have been, frankly. I remember I was really sick during my trip to Istanbul, which of course always sucks when you're traveling. But this time, this trip, I have been here for about a week and I've really explored the gay travel, aspects of being here. So I'm excited to share my take this time with you guys. I'm probably going to delete that video because who needs two videos on the same subject? But I'm excited to share these updates with you guys and hopefully give you a comprehensive idea of what gay travel is really like in a place like Istanbul, Turkey. It's important to start with some cultural context around Istanbul. Unlike some of the other Middle Eastern countries that I've been to, like when I went to the Emirates, to Dubai specifically, when I went to Egypt, after this trip actually in Istanbul, I'll be in Morocco. These are all places where it is punishable by law to be gay or to be caught doing, something gay. You can be persecuted for being gay. In Turkey, it is not illegal to be gay. A lot of people think it is outside, from the West. People think it's illegal to be gay in Turkey. It is not illegal. And Turkey is actually technically a secular country. That being said, it is for sure a place where being gay, or just LGBT in general, is frowned upon. It's sort of like a don't ask, don't tell thing. There very much is a stigma related to homosexuality here, to the point where I actually made a video about this not too long ago, and I'll link to it up here for those of you who are curious. In the Turkish military, and all men are required, by the way, to serve in the military. Military duty is required in Turkey. If you are gay and you prove that you are gay, you can get out of your military duty. And the way you prove that you're gay is by showing very revealing photographs to the Turkish military. So hopefully that gives you an idea of, if that's a way you can get out of the military, then the society's open enough for you to share that, but there's this shame and stigma around it where you have to do this incredibly embarrassing thing to get out of military duty as a gay man, to the point where I'm willing to bet a good portion of gay men are like, I'm not even going to open that door. I'm just going to keep quiet, don't ask, don't tell, and so on. And I think this cultural murkiness around being gay or LGBT is why that last video I made was so successful. I think there's a mystique and a sort of ambiguity around Turkish culture that is interesting to people. Historically, Turkey has always been this blended culture, this gateway between the East and the West, meaning connecting Europe to Asia, and more specifically to the Middle East. Turkey is actually one of the only countries, and Istanbul is one of the only cities in the world that is on two continents. There's a part of Istanbul that's in Europe, and there's a part of Istanbul that's in Asia. And that very much is reflected in the culture, in the people, in the phenotypes of people. You have people here who look like me, meaning looking more Mediterranean. I'm half Turkish, though frankly, I'm in the minority. I think most people here look kind of ambiguously, could be Middle Eastern, could be from one of the stands like Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and so on. So it's quite a melting pot. And walking around the city of Istanbul, it's the same thing. You see certain features that feel more European, like you're in a European city. But then, of course, you see the mosques and you hear the call to prayer 5 times a day. And then you remember you're in a Muslim country that isn't really Middle Eastern, but it's kind of there. It's sort of on the edge of the Middle East. The magic of Istanbul is all in the details. So, as a whole, Istanbul is a very industrial city, gritty, I would even say, which isn't typically my favorite kind of city. But then you stumble upon these hidden paths and tucked away streets, like this one behind me. So easy to miss, but I saw this ray of light coming through a side street, and look behind me. It's basically like an ancient Greek or Roman looking garden that just happens to be tucked away, and there's a cafe next to me. And this is where Istanbul is a very interesting place, that it's really all about these tucked away, mysterious spots that you have to kind of be on the lookout for to really appreciate Istanbul for what it is. This is how you find the coolest bars, restaurants, shops, and in this case, even just like a little park retreat away from the chaos of the city. They're doing construction of lockdown. You might be able to hear it, but here you feel completely calm and relaxed and among nature. Turkish people have a lot of pride in their culture. It's a very nationalistic culture. And I think a lot of that is because of this blend, that they don't want to be strictly categorized as European. They also don't want to be categorized as Middle Eastern or Arab, because it's not that culture. You know, Turkish people don't speak Arabic, they speak Turkish. It's a Muslim majority country, but it's a secular republic. So there's all these sort of like nuances and details that make it its own little bubble. And again, I think there's a fascination from the outside with that. And that ends up trickling down into the gay culture aspect. Again, this kind of murkiness of much more accepting than a lot of other Middle Eastern countries, but not quite as open and progressive with that as, let's say, Western Europe. A couple quick things to mention, culturally speaking, to be prepared for with the men here. Everybody smokes. This is a huge smoking culture, and it's always jarring to me when I come here, because living in the United States, I'm not used to so many people smoking. And here it's so prevalent that it's to the point where even my hotel bathroom smells, that there's like a remnant of cigarette smell. You know, every taxi that you're in, every restaurant, it's very intense. And you look at, you know, dating app profiles, the vast majority of guys, it says they're a smoker. They identify as a smoker. The other thing when it comes to gay culture to be mindful of is this is a very macho culture and an old school culture. And again, that murkiness around the acceptance of being gay complicates things, right? So you have a lot of that toxic masculinity that pops up on, let's say, an app like Grindr or Tinder, where people will say, guys will say, I'm a top, but I'm only looking for man to man. Like, I'm only interested in very masculine men. There are a lot of men here who I would say are overly assertive. I've had a few weird interactions on apps with guys that were, I would say, hostile, even though I didn't say or do anything to receive that kind of response. So I think this complexity around, you know, the lack of full acceptance of being gay just sometimes creates these barriers. And of course, when something isn't totally accepted, you fall into this territory of commodification, right? So both with locals as well as with people visiting here from more conservative places, there is a huge escort culture here. And I don't remember it being this way the last time. I'm shocked. Like, literally no exaggeration. Half of the guys that I've been interested in, that I've reached out to on an app like Grindr, we started talking, and eventually they would say like, "Hey, by the way, I'm an escort," or like, "I expect you to pay me." Which obviously for me, I'm like, please, please, if anything, you should pay me. Like, I'm not paying you. One guy even who was, oh my God, he was so sexy. He was so hot and had no clue. Nothing about his profile made me think he could be an escort. He said to me at one point that he comes with a fee. Like, he said it ambiguously enough instead of just straight up, I'm an escort or I'm a prostitute. And then he proceeded to ask me for my pictures. And I'm like, I'm not sending you more pictures of me. Like, I'm done. I've lost interest. And he was kind of like trying to retract and oh, I didn't used to charge, but now I need to with the cost of living. And it's just so peculiar to me. I think a lot of these guys have normalized the idea of fetishizing their homosexuality, but also their like value as, I guess, an attractive man in and an attractive masculine man, particularly in a place where, again, there's a taboo element to all of this. So I do find the dating app or hookup app experience here a little bit jolting. Some quick vocab to run through. People here don't say top and bottom. They say actif and passif, which if you're used to visiting um, parts of Europe where the languages, have Latin roots, same exact words, just the Turkish version, right? Active versus passive. Active meaning top, passive meaning bottom. What I find interesting here is that some people will say verse or versatile for, a combination for both of those roles. But I've heard a lot of guys say AP as in AP, meaning both actif and passif. And that's very peculiar to me because the fact that they're using the other words that you'll find in other languages with Latin roots, and yet they don't use the same common word as those countries for versatile or even just saying both. They say ape. And I can't help but wonder if that's all about like aligning yourself with being a top by still having it be in the phrase, like the A stands for actif, active, top. There is that in this culture. It's a part of the gay sort of taboo macho culture thing in Turkey where it's almost okay to be gay if you're a top because then you're like the dominant guy, but there very much is shame no matter what about being a bottom. And if you think about it, homophobia and the taboo elements about being gay anywhere in the world really revolve around the idea of a man being submissive to another man. Like that's a huge Achilles heel for society and for, manhood. But I think in places like Turkey, it takes on a whole other meaning where I think a lot of guys say they're top, but they're not really a top. They don't want to admit to the truth. Or you have these guys who are versatile and they absolutely want to make sure that when they describe themselves, they include the word actif in it. It's pretty interesting. To give you another example of this murkiness around being gay in Istanbul, Grindr is banned here, which I find fascinating because it's not even illegal to be gay here in Turkey, and yet Grindr is banned. But locals will get around anything, right? So people here use a VPN, or virtual private network, which is basically this thing you can set up. It'll cost you, and I set one up for the first time ever in my life. I actually was like, let me try this out. It cost me about 12 bucks, 12 US dollars, so it's nothing. You pay per month, so I'll just end it when I come home to the States. 12 bucks is nothing. I bought one called ExpressVPN, and basically it resets your location to anywhere you want in the world. So I set mine as being in the States, even though I'm obviously in Turkey. And by doing that, you circumvent these local online regulations for banned websites and apps. So I've been able to access Grindr. But otherwise, if you were to open Grindr without a VPN, this is what it looks like. You still see that there's profiles. You can still access the app, but you can't communicate with anybody. You can't see anybody's profiles. It's sort of like frozen. And then once you use a VPN, it works as it normally would. But a lot of gay locals here will also use the app Hornet because that one is not blocked. And Hornet is basically like a knockoff Grindr, like the Walmart version of Grindr. I used it for a few days and I just stopped trying. Interestingly, I thought there would be a lot more local Turkish users, but Grindr has more Turkish users. So clearly there's a lot of people using a VPN. I wouldn't be surprised if most millennials and Gen Zers in Turkey use a VPN at this point to access whatever sites they want and apps. But Hornet to me is just a strange app. It's not just a grid system hookup and dating app like Grindr. It's also kind of trying to be a social network. So like people can follow you and you can follow them and you can live stream. It's just too much for me. I find that bizarre. And it's funny how an app could only get away with doing that with gay users, because I can guarantee you no women would stay on a dating app where men can randomly follow them and watch them live stream. And like, it would only work with gay users, but I don't see the longevity of an app like that. I just think, especially in a more discreet culture, like who wants to create a social media presence out of a hookup app? I think that's bizarre. So I stuck to Grindr here as well as Tinder and Bumble. Again, kind of a disappointing experience with these apps for me. But of course, you can always meet people the old-fashioned way, right? In person. So I did also look up gay nightlife, gay bars. Most of these places are in the Beyoğlu neighborhood, which is actually where I'm staying. Beyoğlu is sort of like the trendy, more youthful, a lot of bars, a lot of restaurants vibe of Istanbul. And so this also happens to be where you have nightlife in general, and that includes gay bars and gay clubs and gay friendly establishments. That being said, it's subtle. I've seen one rainbow flag since I've been here, and it wasn't even for a gay bar. I guess it was just like a gay friendly place. And I checked out a few gay bars which were very easy to miss. Like I really had to pay attention. I actually walked into the wrong bar at one point, and the guy outside who was trying to like bring people in was like, "I think you're trying to go next door." Not him using gaydar on me, but again, no clear indication that this was a gay bar. But I did notice the letter X was rainbow colored, and that's sort of like the signal, I guess, for local gay people or gay visitors to know that, like, yes, this is a gay bar. If you come here and want to check out gay bars and gay clubs, just make sure to do your research, because some of them that I saw that I was curious to check out had horrible reviews saying that like the staff there will try to kind of hustle you into spending more on more drinks. Some of them are deserted but claim to not be. So definitely do your research. The bar that I went to, I went early enough in the night where it was like half busy, but I'm just at that age where I don't want to just stand at a bar anymore. I'd rather go to like a really nice, posh lounge. But it was worth checking out. From what I hear, the clubs, the gay clubs here are quite a scene, but late at night, like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., they're packed. I'm a grandpa at this point. It's not really my scene, but just something for you to note in case that's what you're interested in and you'd rather be around gay guys in real life versus using apps. Another place to meet gay men here is the bathhouse, the gay saunas. And if you're not familiar with Turkish hammams, it's a thing, Turkish bathhouses. Just again, make sure to do your research, because here in Turkey, you have like the traditional ones, which oftentimes are co-ed. They'll still separate the men from the women for like the locker room purposes and the facilities, but that's typically code. Like when it's co-ed, you know that it's a more sort of standard PG rated hammam or bathhouse. And then you have your gay friendly bathhouses, which I can confirm things happen in the dark corners of the steam rooms. I have a video coming up next after this video about that, so make sure to check that out if you're curious. But that is another place that you could meet local gay men. Speaking of doing research, when I was doing research on this whole bathhouse situation, I saw a Reddit post where somebody commented, "Who needs a bathhouse and who needs gay bars when you could just hang out on this street called Istiklal Caddesi," which basically means like Independence Avenue or Independence Way. You can hang out there and cruising action happens. Now, I know this street because the last time I came here, my Airbnb was right off of it. And it's so funny that all those years ago, about 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I don't remember any cruising happening. But you change as you get older and you become more aware and observant. And it's so funny, you guys, that it's a big, big avenue. It's all shops. It's always packed with people. So this is a very like mainstream, family friendly street. And you guys, I walked down it after having a few beers, and I'm just, walking by myself in my own little world. Sure enough, within half an hour, 3 different guys tried to get my attention. One was making fierce eye contact, intense eye contact as I was walking by. And the 2 other guys, they came up to me asking me for a smoke, which seems innocuous enough, but nothing about me gave the impression that I was a smoker. I was power walking. It's not like I was, standing there smoking. I'm power walking through these crowds, and they randomly came up to me at separate times asking me for a smoke. One of them got the memo when I was like, "No, I don't smoke." The other one was like pursuing me. He was like, "Well, where are you from? Where are you going? Can I come with you?" Creepy, but also fascinating, because I'm not used to that kind of directness in the States. So that's another thing in all of this. There's a directness and an assertiveness, again, dominance to the Turkish culture, and yet all of this is still taboo. So it's this weird blend of, it's kind of like a dance or a game that you're navigating when you're in Istanbul. There's discretion, and yet if you look hard enough, it's kind of all around you, whether it's an app, whether it's a guy cruising, whether it's a bathhouse. I hope you found this helpful and resourceful for your next trip to Istanbul, Turkey, in terms of the gay travel experience. I do want to end this video by highlighting again the importance of doing your research. Of course, really you should do your research anytime you travel to a new place, a foreign place. But in a place where being gay is taboo and not completely accepted publicly and locally, please, please, please do your research just to be mindful of how to navigate certain situations, whether it's nightlife, whether it's bathhouses, whether it's using these apps. When I first opened Tinder here in Turkey, I got a message saying that LGBT people just have to be more careful. I personally haven't had any concerns about my safety since I've been here, gay or not gay. But I also speak Turkish, and I think when you speak the local language or have cultural familiarity, it always helps to navigate any situation. So I just urge you, especially with the awareness of what I mentioned regarding a lot of escorts and a lot of people looking for ways to make money from potentially vulnerable tourists here. Please, please, please do your research so that you can have an amazing time here without any sort of headaches or fears or concerns. If you've been here to Istanbul, I want to know what your experience was like. And if you haven't been, but you want to go and you have questions, concerns, comments, please let me know down below. I'm so curious to hear what you guys have to say. Catch you next time.